You've probably seen Google Spark floating around your feed in the last few weeks, and if you tried to actually figure out what it is, you walked away more confused than when you started. That's not your fault. Google did something almost nobody is calling out. They shipped two completely unrelated products, built for two completely different audiences, under the exact same name, in the same month. I went through Google's own product docs, the Cloud Next and I/O announcements, and the early hands-on coverage to separate what's actually confirmed from what's just marketing language. And what I found is that these two Sparks don't just do different things. They're not even trying to solve the same problem.
Welcome back to bitbiased.ai, where we do the research so you don't have to. Join our community of AI enthusiasts with our free weekly newsletter. Click the link in the description below to subscribe. You will get the key AI news, tools, and learning resources to stay ahead.
So in this video, I'm breaking down both versions of Google Spark, the always-on AI agent living inside Gemini, and the big data engine living inside Google Cloud, what each one actually does, what it costs, and where the claims hold up under scrutiny. Let's start with the one most of you have actually heard of. Two products, one name. Here's the basic split. The first Spark is Gemini Spark, an AI agent Google unveiled at I/O 2026, built to run tasks on your behalf around the clock, triaging your inbox, planning a trip, digging through research, using your own Gmail, Docs, and browsing history as its context. The second Spark is the managed service for Apache Spark, which is Google Cloud's rebrand of what used to be called Dataproc, a fully managed platform for running big data jobs at scale. One is a consumer-facing personal assistant. The other is enterprise infrastructure for data engineers. The only thing they share is a name. And honestly, that's probably going to keep confusing people in search results for months. But here's where it gets interesting. Once you separate the two, each one has its own set of bold claims worth picking apart on its own merits. Gemini Spark, what it actually does. Gemini Spark is pitched as a 24/7 personal AI agent, and the 24/7 part is doing real work in that sentence. Google says tasks keep running even after you close the app or your device is off, because everything happens on Google's own servers, not locally. Under the hood, it runs on Gemini 3.5 Flash, and it taps into what Google calls your personal intelligence. Essentially, the data Google already has on you across Gmail, Docs, and Calendar, combined with a sandboxed remote browser that lets it actually visit websites and take action on your behalf. In early hands-on coverage, testers had it clean up a cluttered inbox, build a weekend trip itinerary using actual calendar and email context, and compile multi-source research reports. One reporter noted, Spark pulled a vet's name straight out of an old email thread to personalize a task, without being told to. That's the kind of detail that makes the demo feel impressive. But it's also exactly the kind of detail that should make you pause, because it means the agent's usefulness and its privacy footprint are the same feature, not two separate trade-offs. Right now, there's no public API for Spark itself. You access it only through the Gemini app, which puts it closer to a locked consumer product like Siri than an open agent framework you could plug your own tools into. Developers who want to build something similar are pointed toward Google's separate Gemini Enterprise Agent platform instead. Spark is more of a flagship example of what that platform can produce than something you can extend yourself. The catch: pricing, privacy, and where it breaks. Spark isn't bundled into every Gemini plan. It's gated behind Google AI Ultra, the roughly $100 a month consumer tier, with a separate enterprise path through Gemini Enterprise Editions for workspace customers. So before you get excited about an AI doing your errands while you sleep, know that it's a premium feature sitting behind a premium price. And the privacy question is worth sitting with for a second, not glossing over. Spark works by reading your emails, your documents, and your calendar to build context. That's the entire value proposition. Google says it's opt-in, encrypted, and access logged, and for enterprise customers, there's compliance coverage like HIPAA and FedRAMP. But for everyday users, the honest framing is that you're trading data access for convenience. And at least one tester described the experience as magical, but kind of creepy, which frankly tracks. Google has also built in hard limits. Spark won't log into sites that require payment credentials, and in one documented case, it found an Airbnb listing, but was blocked from actually booking it because of the site's login restrictions. So this isn't an agent with unlimited reach. It's deliberately boxed in, which is reassuring from a safety standpoint, but also means some of the "it does everything for you" framing in the marketing oversells what it can currently pull off. It's also English only for now and unavailable in regions including the EU and India, so a meaningful chunk of the audience watching this can't even try it yet, where Spark sits against the competition. So, how does this stack up against the obvious comparisons? ChatGPT is the nearest analog in raw capability, but it isn't proactive by default. It waits for you to start the conversation rather than running tasks in the background on a schedule. Claude is built around conversational depth and careful reasoning, but it isn't wired into your personal Google data the way Spark is. So replicating Spark's exact use case would mean manually feeding it the same context. Microsoft's Copilot lives inside Office apps and is genuinely useful there, but Google is positioning Spark as a step beyond a Copilot, something agentic that acts rather than just assists. And voice assistants like Siri or the classic Google Assistant are still mostly command and response, not multi-step planners. Google's actual edge here isn't the model. It's the fact that it already has years of your emails and calendar entries sitting in its infrastructure, ready to be used as context the moment you opt in. That's a moat none of the others can copy overnight. If you've actually gotten your hands on Spark yourself, I'd genuinely like to know whether the demo matches the day-to-day experience. Drop that in the comments, because the hands-on coverage so far has been pretty thin. Switching gears now, that's the Spark most people online are actually talking about. But there's a second one, and this is where the naming collision really starts to cause problems, because this Spark isn't an AI agent at all. It's a rebrand of infrastructure Google's had for nearly a decade. Managed Service for Apache Spark, the Big Data rebrand. At Cloud Next 2026, Google folded its existing Dataproc service into a new name, Managed Service for Apache Spark. If you've never heard of Dataproc, that's fine. It's Google Cloud's platform for running Apache Spark jobs, the open source framework data engineers use for large-scale batch processing, streaming, and machine learning pipelines. The rebrand isn't just cosmetic, though. It comes with a new performance layer called the Lightning Engine, which Google claims runs Spark SQL queries up to 4.9 times faster than open-source Spark on equivalent hardware, with internal benchmarks showing roughly 3.6 times faster performance on 10-terabyte test queries. I want to flag something here, because this is exactly the kind of number that's easy to repeat without context. That figure comes from Google's own benchmarking, not an independent third party, so treat it as a vendor claim worth testing on your own workload rather than a settled fact. What you actually get is a choice between two deployment modes. Serverless Spark lets you submit a job and pay only for the time it runs, with Google handling all the scaling behind the scenes, ideal if your workloads are unpredictable or occasional. Or you can spin up a traditional managed cluster on Compute Engine, scaling up to roughly 800 nodes, with GPU support for machine learning work through NVIDIA Rapids. Either way, it plugs directly into BigQuery and Google Cloud Storage, and it supports open table formats like Apache Iceberg, which means you're not locked into a proprietary data format the way some competing platforms push you toward. Pricing, security, and the parts nobody highlights in the keynote. On cost, you're billed per vCPU second for clusters plus standard compute and storage charges, or per job runtime if you go serverless. And the Lightning Engine itself doesn't carry a separate fee. You're just getting faster results on the same hardware spend, which is genuinely a reasonable value proposition if the speed claims hold up in your specific use case. Google also cites third-party cost studies showing meaningfully lower total cost compared to other clouds for equivalent Spark workloads, though as always, vendor-commissioned studies deserve the same skepticism as vendor-commissioned benchmarks. Security-wise, it's standard enterprise Google Cloudflare, IAM controls, VPC service controls, encryption at rest, customer-managed keys, and compliance coverage across the usual frameworks, assuming you actually configure it correctly, which is true of basically every cloud platform and not unique to Google. But here's the part that doesn't make it into the highlight reel. This is still Spark, with all of Spark's inherent limitations. Streaming support runs on microbatches, not true real-time processing. So if you need sub-second latency, This isn't the right tool, regardless of how fast the Lightning engine makes your batch queries. Idle clusters still cost money if you forget to shut them down or set up auto-scaling properly. And debugging distributed Spark jobs is still genuinely complex. Google gives you better logging and monitoring tools than vanilla open-source Spark, but it doesn't make the underlying complexity disappear, where it lands against Databricks and AWS. The most direct competitor here is Databricks, which runs across AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, and has its own optimized engine called Photon, along with Delta Lake and a genuinely polished notebook experience for collaborative ML work. Databricks tends to be more turnkey for end-to-end machine learning lifecycles, but it bills in its own DBU units, which often ends up pricier than running raw Spark yourself. AWS EMR is the other obvious comparison. Mature, well-documented, but without anything like the Lightning engine. So if Google's performance numbers hold up even partially in real workloads, that's a legitimate differentiator rather than just marketing noise. Azure's equivalent through Synapse or HD Insight is comparatively closer to vanilla open source Spark without a dedicated acceleration layer of its own. The honest takeaway is that if you're already deep in BigQuery and Google Cloud Storage, the tight integration here is the actual selling point, more than the raw speed number everyone's going to quote in the comments. What this actually means for you. So here's the part that ties both Sparks back together, even though they're unrelated products. In both cases, the headline number is impressive, and the fine print is where the real decision gets made. For the AI agent, that means weighing genuinely useful automation against handing over meaningful access to your inbox and calendar, and accepting that it's currently gated behind a premium subscription with real regional and functional limits. For the data platform, it means treating Google's own speed claims as a starting point for your own benchmarking, not a guarantee, and recognizing that the value is less about a single multiplier and more about how well it fits into a Google Cloud-centric data stack you're already running. Google naming both of these Spark in the same product cycle is either a genuine coincidence or a pretty bold branding decision, and either way, it's going to keep causing mix-ups in search results and comment sections for a while. If this breakdown actually helped you tell the two apart, that's exactly the kind of clarity I try to bring to every model and product drop on this channel. Subscribe if you want more of that, and let me know in the comments which Spark you're actually planning to use, because right now, I suspect most of the audience here cares about one and has never even heard of the other.